Let's look at the Eurovision. There was a pro-Palestine protester detained at Eurovision final during Israel's performance. I don't really watch Eurovision. I didn't watch it when I was in Turkey. I'm not really all that interested in it, even though, I mean, and it's not even because I'm not a music listener per se. I just don't think it's, I mean, who cares? But obviously, Eurovision is now basically become an opportunity for Israel to try and do reputation laundering. And they do it by force. They do it through trickery and they do it by force. It's so clear. Like, that's the only thing. That is the only thing that people care about with Eurovision. How Israel's performance sounded like at the arena of Eurovision 2025. The entire arena was screaming. The entire arena was booing, making noise, not in a positive way, but in a negative one. And yet, obviously, the TV shut off the crowd noise. Not only did they shut off the crowd noise, but they made it illegal to bring Palestinian flags in. They apprehended people who were waving Palestinian flags. And also, Israel spent a ton of money doing marketing for this Eurovision process. And I assume a lot of people also participated in this like bullshit telephone voting process. I've seen so much. See, the general public actually likes Israel. You are just too online. Yeah, that's not the case. But the reason why they're doing that, the reason why they did that is so they can say that. The reason why pro-Israel people are like freaking out about this and saying like, look at how wonderful this is. The world actually loves Israel is because they want to create this air, this presence that like the world doesn't despise Israel. They do. Make no mistake. They do. You in this community are infinitely closer to the average person's perspective on Israel's death and destruction campaign in Gaza than whatever the fuck they tried to present here. I've heard from pro-Trump people two things that reaffirm my position here. There are some very aggressively pro-Trump people that I don't have direct relationship with, but like know people that are related to them. And from what I've heard from even their perspective, like not on Eurovision in general, but like they are also now anti-Israel. I mean, people who are like borderline QAnon, who are anti-Israel now. At the end of the day, people see the death and destruction of children and they're like, this is fucked up. It's that simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegations, dear guests from all around the world, this event unites us all, crossing borders, crossing languages, creating a shared space.
So maybe you've seen some snippets of it and wondered, is that what goes on in Europe? You'd be correct. Once a year, singers, bands, musicians get all dressed up and represent their country to give a performance of a lifetime with an original song live on stage. Flags wave, the host country's electricity bill shoots through the roof, and just about every LED light in Europe gets wired to one stage. It was launched in 1956 by the European Broadcasting Union and was meant to unite post-war Europe through music. Countries vote for each other, usually it's neighboring countries, trade partners, and occasional political crushes. And eventually, a winner is crowned. And despite being called the Eurovision, there are still countries outside the geographic region of Europe that participate, like Australia and Israel. That's because any country that is a member of the European Broadcasting Union can participate. To win, a country with the highest number of points, and this is where Israel loves to play around a little, points are gotten from professional jurors from each country that vote for a country of their choice. That makes up for half of the total vote. And the other half is made...
This is just a propaganda operation for Israel. It's just a way to like try and make it seem as though people love Israel. And they pump the individual like telephone votes. They just rig it so they can get a high placement year over year. It is a way for Israel to try and make it seem as though there is more support for Israel than there actually is. You're talking about countries that voted for Israel on Eurovision, countries that literally have European countries that have a very negative opinion of Israel historically, like Norway, that voted for Israel. Get out of here. There was a historic number of people to the tune of 100,000 plus that marched to The Hague today in the Netherlands. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's not real. It's just completely rigged. And we just have to sit there and act like this is something that matters as well.
Fans voting through paid texts or phone calls, where individuals can vote for a maximum of 20 times. And like I said, this is the part where Israel can demonstrate its strong solidarity, turning bloodshed into ballads, headlines into harmonies.
הקהל ריגש אותי בצורה שאני פשוט רציתי לבכות, כי הייתי כל כך מוכנה לכאילו למלא בוז, ולא היה אחד שמעתי רק לעזר, רק דגל ישראל.
Yeah, this is during her performance. And not only were they booing her the entire time, the way that they televised the broadcast, they shut off the crowd noise and pumped in, from what I understand, fake crowd noise of cheers.
Because when it came to the public vote for Israel in Eurovision 2024, just 7 months of responding to October 7th with a genocide, Israel received 323 public votes.
Yeah, the UK commentator said it's a mixed reaction, not sure what you're hearing at home. Not only that, but also the Spanish broadcaster, the European Union Broadcasting Union has threatened to fine Spain's state broadcaster if its commentators reference Gaza during the Eurovision. It's a response after the Spanish commentators remembered Gaza when Israel's song was being introduced during the semifinal. This year, Radio Television Española has requested to Eurovision a debate on Israel's participation in the festival. The victims of the Israeli attacks in Gaza now exceed 50,000, and among more than them, 15,000 children, according to the United Nations. This is not a petition against any country. It is a call for peace, justice, and respect for human rights in line with international human rights. So this was the Spanish graphic before the show started. When human rights are at stake, silence is not an option. Peace and justice for Palestine. Yeah, bad move by them for posting that after being warned not to. Eurovision is not supposed to be political. Yeah, dumbest guy on the planet. Belgium did something like this as well, with many tens of famous Belgian people who said they disagree with Eurovision and that they stand with Palestine. It's so funny because, like, I repeat this over and over again, but Israel, for many who refuse to pay attention to politics, I think they go, why do you care about Israel so much? But what a lot of people don't understand is that Israel is a perfect demonstration of what happens when something is unimaginably unpopular by the masses, but is still being maintained at a time when, like, social media has exploded and democratized information sharing to a certain degree, with, you know, some negative consequences as well. But it's created this massive fissure between our institutions and our mainstream media operations. In some respects, in the United States of America, for example, or the BBC, it is directly placing the democratic wishes of the broader public, even in the Western world, at odds with the institutions of control, institutions of propaganda, and also our politicians. It is such an obvious fissure, a direct contradiction with the wishes inside of these nation states that are supposed to be the defenders of liberal democracy. It exposes the lack of interest in maintaining democracy in these Western liberal democracies, because they would rather show that corruption to every single citizen than to move even a little bit away from their undying, unconditional defense of Israel and its genocide of the Palestinians. That's it. That's what's going on here. I don't really know what Eurovision is, but Israelis tried to cheat for it and they still lost. I voted 60 times for Israel, 20 from international, 20 from UK, 20 from Australia. Yes, I have credit cards from 3 different countries. I voted 100 times, used 5 credit cards. Israel almost won Eurovision with a shitty song and pure propaganda. Killing humans is not enough for them. They also try to kill art. Yeah. So they cooked the books to the best of their ability, as they, as this is one of the only mechanisms that they have to just do propaganda. But here was even Graham Norton's take while this was happening.
And I think the EBU will be breathing the largest sigh of relief that they're not faced with a Tel Aviv final next year.
Yeah, the EBU will be breathing the largest sigh of relief that they're not faced with a Tel Aviv final. I was wondering why nobody was posting the clip of Graham Norton said at Eurovision. He had the audacity to say before Yuval's performance that the entry continues to be controversial, and he let the home audiences know that there was slightly a mixed response in the hall. That's it.
On to song number 4 now, and it's the turn of Israel. Now, of course, their participation in the competition continues to be controversial. Fewer protests this year, but a mixed response at some of the rehearsals. Not sure what you're hearing at home. A slightly mixed response here in the hall.
Yeah, they zoomed in on like a couple pro-Israel people in the crowd to not show the full scope of anger and resentment inside of the arena. Again, it is a carefully crafted propaganda operation, but it doesn't change the reality. It doesn't change the depravity of Israel's actions. It doesn't change the analysis that many average people, citizens in these countries, feel towards Israel. Israel has officially become a pariah state, and it does not matter. They are trying to manufacture consent. They are trying to manufacture an alternative reality that does not exist.
323 points.
And remember, Eurovision, without any contest whatsoever, swiftly banned Russia from participating after Russia's unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine, which is fair. It's fair to do. And yet Israel, for 2 years in a row now, while continuing its genocide, has been allowed to participate in Eurovision. So when people say, oh, this is not political, remember, it just means that like Israel has more institutional influence in the Western world than Russia does to be able to participate in these things, to engage in the act of art washing.
Now, in contrast to that, Iceland's contestant in Eurovision 2019, a rock band called Hatari, was penalized for holding a Palestinian flag.
And we go to France. Our next country is France.
According to EurovisionWorld.com, the Icelandic broadcaster was fined 5,000 euros for holding the Palestinian flag. The contest organizers said that this gesture infringed their rules banning political gestures. Literally a Palestine.
Why is that a political gesture, I wonder? The recognition of Palestinians in Palestine is considered a political gesture, chat. It is a political gesture to recognize the humanity of the victims of genocide. Interesting. Of course, they didn't do this with Ukrainian flags. Ukraine gets to participate in Eurovision. Palestine does not. It is the most overt, most shameful display of hypocrisy by Western nations, an ongoing atrocity, and their lack of interest in doing anything meaningful to stop it. Isn't it funny how all the way down to like dumbass slop tubers saying, oh, this is political, all the way to Eurovision where nation states are complaining, something being considered political is always when it's a non-state actor or a victim of a state actor. It's always political if it's like a marginalized community getting representation in video games. Call of Duty, not political. Call of Duty only becomes political when there's like female operators. Israel being invited while doing a genocide, not political. The mere mention of Palestinians, the victims of Israel genocide, political. Always the same principle, dude. Always. 61% of Eurovision fans in Britain said Israel shouldn't participate. 58% of all Britons, Israel shouldn't participate, shouldn't be allowed to compete. Eurovision fans, 61% said Israel shouldn't participate across the board. Ironically enough, seemingly Israel won all of these countries in the votes. They got like a shit ton of votes from all these different countries on the telephone votes. It's not that sophisticated of a propaganda operation, by the way. They're just simply pumping votes. It doesn't fucking matter.